Okay, hello everyone, and glad to see you all here today. My name is Adam Shem, the projects associate at the projects associate at Liberty Sparks, Kenya, and glad to see you all joining us here today for the third session. We are going to be talking about, or this episode is going to be about food police. And you all know the drill, I am aware. Let us all start off by commenting with our names and the locations we are joining in from. And today we are going to be having a very lively session, and we are going to be finding ways or seeing how we can link government control to food and other shortages in general. And I'm hoping that this session is going to be very, very, very insightful to all of you. And as usual, I'm going to continue being the class prefect or monitor if you are a hater. And I'm just dropping the link for the attendance on the comment sections or in the comment sections. And remember that it is going to ask for a secret code. And our secret code for today is food police. So I've just dropped it. Our secret code for today is food police. If you're just joining us right now, we are about to get started. As usual, we are going to start with a video, and my colleague Ronnie is going to be playing that. And after that, we are going to be inviting our speaker of the day. I hope this session is going to be lively. I hope it's going to be entertaining and as well educating to you. So let us get it all started. Thank you.
Previously on Jonathan Gullible.
What was that? This island keeps getting stranger.
I wouldn't drink that if I were you.
Why? You let people take fish and dump rubbish in your lake.
Oh, this isn't my lake.
I'm trying to get home.
I thought you might not be from Carumpo.
Who's Carumpo?
This whole island is Carumpo.
Are you Phineas Sharp?
Hey!
Hey!
How am I gonna get home now? Are you coming?
Being shipwrecked and lost might not be such an awful thing, since you can't be lost from yourself, right? I'll figure out a way home, but careful who we ask for help. I don't want to get hauled off by those two white shirt guys. Huh? Well, I can't get home if we starve to death first. Maybe we can ask a local for some apples in exchange for... Hey! What? Let's see if we can find the farmer. Huh?
Huh?
Excuse me, is there any trouble?
It's my husband. He's been arrested. I knew one day it would come to this.
What did he do wrong?
His crime was growing too much food.
Did you say too much food?
My husband grew more food than anybody. Stocks twice your size. With all the corn we had, we were able to cut our prices and get more customers. Last year, the food police issued orders telling us how much food we could produce and sell to our neighbors. They said if we grew too much, prices would fall.
Cheap food sounds good to me.
They said lower prices meant less profit for the other farmers. My husband is a better farmer than all the rest of them put together.
Better farmer? I'd say the best farmer is the one who gets to keep the farm. What are you still doing here? The Council of Lords awarded this land to me. I'm sure she can use the help, boy. Get moving. This place is mine now.
My husband was a better farmer than you'll ever be, Mr. Fetsock.
Sure, Mr. Yunker had green fingers. He was a genius at figuring out what to plant and how to please customers. Look around and you'll see that. But he forgot the most important thing. The Council of Lords sets the prices and crops. Ah, here come the food police now. The wheels of justice on time again.
Huh?
Over here, officers.
You parasite! Your farming methods are incompetent. You waste good manure and seed. No one wants to buy what you grow. You plant in the floodplains, and it never matters when you lose everything because you just get the Council of Lords to pay for the rot.
Fail check. Good sale. Good sale. Good sale. Good sale.
Davy, don't watch.
Sir, I'm sure they meant no harm by being good farmers.
Being a good farmer now is a handicap? Unlike this toad, my husband refused to flatter the lords and grew real crops.
He refused to follow the annual quota. No one crosses the food police and gets away with it. Now, quiet. This is my favorite part.
Cart is all we have left.
Step aside, citizen. Step aside.
Come on, Davy. There's nothing here now.
Oh, I love the smell of burning crops in the morning.
Keep your eyes on the road ahead.
Thanks.
It was yours anyway.
Thank you, young man.
Where will you go now?
They burned our harvest, and we can't afford the new high food prices. I could beg the Council of Lords to take care of Davy and me. They'd like that. But we've got family in the city that can help us.
Oh, look! Two behemoths!
Whoa!
Hey!
Huh?
Don't walk under them. It's bad luck. Duh.
Behemoths.
Mom says they really can't hurt us anymore. They were all destroyed during the Age of Disruption.
When was that?
Way before anybody can remember. The behemoths used to stomp around the island and destroy loads of stuff.
What happened to them?
The island voted the Council of Lords, who united all with banners and swords. And so Carumpo was safe and sound. A live behemoth never more was found.
How could anyone fight giants like that?
Dunno. But after they won the Age of Disruption ended, the council left the blown-up behemoths as monuments to celebrate how our island was saved.
Must have been one heck of a battle.
I know, right? Pew, 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 pew.
We're headed this way.
We're going to see Dad?
That's right.
Zoo? Where have you been? Ew. Huh. You little cat burglar. Serves him right. I guess we're going to visit a zoo. You in?
Thank you so Thank you very much for that. I'd love to bring up our speaker now, our speaker of the day. I'd love to bring her up now. I believe we've all had the chance to watch the video. And so today our speaker is Ms. Maureen Barasa, who is an economist at the Institute of Economic Affairs, or IEA, Kenya. And she specializes in public finance, trade, and development policy. So she's going to be taking us through today's session based on the adaptation or based on the video that we've just watched. And Ms. Maureen, if you can hear me, the floor is yours. You can just begin to speak now.
Okay, if you can hear me, please let me know. Thank you. Okay. I'm assuming you can hear me, so I'll just go straight to our discussion for the day. We've already had a chance to watch the video whereby Jonathan enters Corampo, and we're going to discuss. Our discussion today is majorly on food police, which involves price control on food. So, just straight to the discussion. Uh, Welcome back to Corompo, and Jonathan has wandered through the market. Just a recap of the video, a little bit of it. Jonathan has wandered through a market where farmers are afraid to sell their grains, and the stalls are half empty, yet warehouses outside the city bulge with unsold food. Why he tends to ask, and we see that woman, and the woman says that it's a crime selling maize or rather food above the fair price. And overnight, these traders became lawbreakers, and we have her husband being jailed. And yeah, so the plenty, or rather the surplus that existed, has already been turned to shortage. And this is just not fiction. It mirrors what happens in different governments in the African continent. This is something we can relate with, and we're going to see this in the future slides. So just straight to our theme for the day is how good intentions. Of course, the government, when the government decides to control prices for either food or any other essential commodity, it does that with good intentions. Sometimes it's majorly politics, but it tends to clash with economic reality. The economic reality that exists is totally different from what the government intends to do to its citizens. Maybe help the poor afford food. And yeah, in this session, you're going to look at, there's a split between emotions and real economics. So just a question as we go ahead. Have you ever seen goods disappear after a price cap or a subsidy was announced, and what happened? In our different countries, we've seen the government say maybe don't sell maybe a bag of maize past a certain price, or maybe don't sell petrol or fuel or even cooking oil above a certain price. So this is something we can relate. So let's pause the story and peek under the hood of these mysterious rules. What are price controls really? So looking at the next slide, yes, this is still Jonathan Galibo, episode 3, and the food police. And we see what we see here is the map of Africa. Yes, so we are going to relate to the story of Jonathan and what happens in the continent of Africa. So, what are price controls? So, we're going to use our imagination in this. Imagine a seesaw. When you are learning science in primary school, we learned about a seesaw. So we have the supply side, who are the sellers, and the demand side, who are the buyers. So they have to balance the seesaw by achieving an equilibrium. So when the balance is achieved, that's the market price that's supposed to exist. But now picture the government one end by setting either the natural point. Yes, if they set a ceiling below the natural point, of course, the supply side will be happy about it because prices fall. And no, I mean the demand side will be happy about it because they'll be able to afford more goods and the prices will drop. And what about the demand side? The demand side won't be happy about this because our profits tend to vanish, and soon production slows down and also queues grow because scarcity is created in this case. And what you have here is just a cartoon graph to explain why, for instance, when Jonathan traveled to Corompo, why did he find out that maybe there was a food shortage because farmers were told to not sell their products at a low price because there's some farmers who are making losses. And we see this woman leaving because she lost her farm, and also her husband has been jailed because of selling food at a low price. And in this chart, we see the demand curve, which is upward sloping, and the supply curve, which is downward sloping. And if a ceiling below the market, the ceiling below the market price creates shortages, and producers want supply consumers over demand. Yes, so the shortages are down there because if the price ceiling is below that of the equilibrium, of course, as a seller, you'll want to not take part in that trade because, of course, you're going to make losses. And when that happens, the demand will exceed supply and the shortage is created there. So that's why you'll see maybe queues during, say, certain seasons or certain months when maybe there's drought or whatever, and the government decides to intervene and say, because there's a shortage of maize or there's a shortage of maybe wheat flour, we're going to cap the price at this point. So they're creating artificial shortage by intervening in a market that did not have any dysfunction. And price controls are government imposed limits on or how low a price can go. So it can go either way. They can either decide to decide impose a price control on how low a product can go. It can go maybe, say you can't sell maybe something lower than 100 bob, and that will be an advantage to the supply side. And when that happens, there's a surplus that's created in the market whereby goods and services will flood the market. And when that happens, it tends to the prices will regulate itself at some point. So there's no need for government intervention in food prices. Yeah, so this table here just shows the effects and market outcomes of price control. And we have the policy type, the column for effect, and the market outcome. So on the policy type, we have the price ceiling, which the price ceiling is setting, say, maybe you can't sell maybe, say, a bottle of water past maybe you can't sell it for more than $1. And the effect is the maximum price, it's below the equilibrium. Maybe the market is willing to give out maybe $2, and the government is setting the price at $1, and that results in a shortage because the supply side will be making a loss, while the demand side might be happy about it. They'll be able to buy maybe two bottles of water, but there'll be a shortage if someone is able to buy 2 bottles of water maybe for $2. That means someone else will be deprived of that product. Then we have the price floor, which is maybe don't sell certain products below maybe $1. And the effect is that the minimum price is above that of the equilibrium, and it creates a surplus whereby goods will be able to flood the market. And this in effect has this in essence has an effect because when a surplus is created in the market, the whoever is selling their product might not be able to sell because the market is flooded and there's so many alternatives in the market. Then you have the policy type of free market, which is the best alternative, the best option in this case, and prices adjust naturally, whereby supply and demand meet and they regulate the prices naturally. If a bottle of water is supposed to be at $1, it will naturally adjust at $1 given a willing buyer, willing seller in that market. And this is where the sweet point is achieved, that is the equilibrium. So we've already looked at Jonathan watching the chaos in Corompo, and producers tend to quit. There's middlemen who get to intervene, and maybe queues tend to become longer because an artificial scarcity has been created, and soon an underground tunnel is created with secret trade and black markets, which tend to arise in case a government intervention is created, and the artificial shortage that's created will cause black markets. You've seen people going to maybe say a neighboring country to get something as like to smuggle something like cigarettes because the government decided to get rid of maybe negative externality by imposing maybe excise tax on cigarettes. And of course, consumers will try to adjust with the prices that are there. So a black market is created in this case. So in all this, I'm just trying to explain low official prices discourage production, and yet high hidden prices reward corruption by creating the surplus. And that's what we've seen in the previous slide. So as we go ahead, have you ever seen people find a way when official goods ran out? And how did it change trust in the system? So in case, or look at it maybe as a government service. If government is supposed maybe to provide passports and maybe there's a shortage in the production, you've seen people trying to maybe bribe their way to get a passport or get a certain government service. So when a shortage or rather scarcity is created, black markets tend to exist and corruption tends to happen in this case. So how do nations escape this trap? So let's show Jonathan how to ride towards a new hope with FCTA. And yeah, we'll see this in a future slide. So in this slide, I've mentioned price controls in Africa. So these are just some examples in this slide. So in Kenya, we had maize price caps, that is ceilings, that led to hoarding and shortage. And before that, there was a protest because people were feeling the maize prices were too high, inflation is too high, people can't be able to, due to low income levels in the country, and people are suffering, so they decided to take it to the streets. And what happened, the government decided as to show good intention by setting price ceiling on maize prices, and we saw an artificial shortage created because people decided to put their maize bags back to storage. And yeah, and some people decided to, you remember there was a time you could go to a supermarket and you're not allowed to buy more than 2 or 3 bags of maize meal, or people are going to countries like maybe Tanzania to get maize and come back to sell at a higher price. So those are the effects of trying to control prices by creating a price ceiling. Then, for the case of Nigeria, Nigeria had fuel subsidies that created black markets. And these fuel subsidies, the government was trying to create some hope by placing these fuel subsidies. And this is a cost on government. And through these fuel subsidies, it created an alternative market that is a black market. So that is an effect of the government trying to intervene in a functional market that doesn't need government intervention. And we had also the case of Zimbabwe. I'm pretty sure most of you have heard about the case of Zimbabwe, whereby bread price controls emptied shelves. When the government tried to uh, control the prices of bread, the producers, because of course, if someone is going to incur a loss, they'll rather stop producing that particular commodity. So when that happened, they witnessed empty shelves and people stayed on queues for so long so that they can access different commodities. And these are just textbook outcomes of distorted price signals, which the government did not read very well in their intent to do well by the people. They missed on some things and it created shortages and also black markets in the process. So we'll discuss the scarcity trap. And the scarcity trap just simply ties back to the chart that we had on supply and demand and the shortages that were created by setting our prices above um, below that of the equilibrium. So when prices are artificially low, if you remember that chart on an upward slope of demand and a downward slope on supply. So when prices are artificially low, producers tend to exit the market and consumers rush in. That's the reverse effect. Because if you could buy maybe something, if you could buy, if initially you could buy one product, if you could buy one product at $1 and the price has been reduced, that means you could buy maybe three products at $1. Of course, consumers will try to rush in and get more products, and producers are looking at maybe the loss they're going to make. They'll tend to exit the market. And what happens? Scarcity is created in this case. So scarcity tends to happen in this case, and the little products that remain in the market creates the effect of informal markets, that is the black markets, and also corruption tends to happen because everyone is trying to, all consumers, the demand side is trying to get the few products that have remained in the market due to scarcity. So, and this creates the very opposite effect of what the government intended, and economic freedom in this case are limited. So moving forward, we'll be looking at the FCTA and regional coordination. So yeah, we've already discussed Corompo, and now we are moving to a continent known as Africa. So this is just a colorful caravan crossing African trade borders under the African Continental Free Trade Area, that is the AFCTFTA. And in this case, we expect traders to be swapping grain for oil. Okay, in the first ever form of exchange, that was barter trade. Maybe traders swap grain for oil, fish for fruits, and prices tend to find their own level, because I believe even during barter trade, people used to, if I give you maybe 5 mangoes, you give me maybe an apple. Yeah, people used to find an equilibrium in that form of trade. And we are still traveling with Jonathan. So Jonathan sees abundance return through cooperation. Yeah, people have their own way of achieving an equilibrium in their exchange of goods and services, and this is majorly achieved through cooperation. So when countries coordinate instead of isolate, uh, say a country has a comparative advantage of producing maybe um, palm oil, and another country can produce maize flour, or it can produce maybe petroleum products. And if different countries with different comparative advantages tend to coordinate instead of isolation, scarcity tends to ease because an equilibrium is achieved in this case. And the Africa Continental Free Trade Area harmonizes standards and allows goods to flow where they're needed across the different countries in the African continent. So, just a question that I'll pose to you: how could regional trade lessen the pain caused by domestic price control? That's something to think about. If maybe a country has placed maybe price control on, say, maize products or fuel or whatever, how can regional trade come in to correct this issue? So we tend to note that even open borders can't fix poor governance. So let's see what happens when policymakers use different ways of trying to show good intention to its citizens. So first and foremost, we look at the African Free Continental Trade Area as a buffer against scarcity. So the African Free Continental Trade Area enables cross-border trade in food, fuel, and essentials, reducing reliance on domestic price controls. So basically, it's created to allow coordination of goods and products across different countries in the continent. And at the IEA Kenya, we've done several papers to sort of create an emphasis on trade liberalization under the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. And we've said that it allows market forces to stabilize prices regionally, especially during supply shocks. During supply shocks, it's easier to have coordination and exchange of goods and services cross-border in such a smooth way. If Africa Free Continental Trade Area allows market forces to play out themselves, then the Africa Continental Free Trade Area tariffs, reductions, and streamlined customs can help countries to avoid panic-driven price ceiling. Yes, if goods and services can move freely, it reduces the panic-driven price ceilings that governments tend to create to protect its citizens, maybe from exploitation or maybe from really high food prices, and yeah, more so from hunger. Then you have price control against trade signals. So price controls distort local production incentives. Yes, we've already discussed if price controls are implemented, local production. Okay, anyone who's on the supply side will try to uh, look for an alternative to survive in that market, if at all they're not getting value for money in whatever they are trading in. And the African Free Continental Trade Area encourages countries to respond to price signals from regional markets, not just domestic politics. Yeah, still on the aspect of comparative advantage, if maybe Tanzania has a surplus in maize production and Kenya has a deficit, an equilibrium can be achieved instead of trying to look at the scarcity in maize production that exists in Kenya and setting prices using what exists in Kenya. Then lastly, under Africa Free Continental Trade Area and regional coordination, we have the role of regional blocks. We still have the EAC and ECOWAS, which can still harmonize agricultural pricing frameworks through joint monitoring of inflation and commodity flows to reduce the need for unilateral price intervention. And this can be through shared data platforms, which can be done across Africa by looking at different commodities that countries produce and working through it to get better coordination. So Africa Free Continental Areas offers a way out of Corompo's or Africa's scarcity trap by liberalizing trade. And African countries can rely on regional supply chains instead of distorting prices. So price controls often fail where trade could succeed. So it's all about cooperation and coordination across borders in different countries in Africa. And Africa Continental Free Trade Area customs reforms should not just be about efficiency, they should be about economic freedoms. Yeah, thanks. So we've already looked at the Africa Free Continental Trade Area and regional coordination. Then moving forward, we'll be looking at governance and policy design, where different policies and their good intention fail the policymakers. And here we note that good governance means using data, not dogma. So if most of the legislators use data to drive their policies, maybe looked at data on food regionally instead of just in the country, or trying to span emotions across, they'll achieve better results instead of creating artificial scarcity or surplus, or in the process creating black markets and also creating corruption. So if Jonathan visited Corompo's or stroke, maybe say Nigeria's Ministry of Fair Prices, this is just as trying to play around with imagination. So officials will be punching numbers and sparks fly from, say, their calculators or maybe their spreadsheet. They're guessing, not measuring. They just, as maybe someone says there's a scarcity in this product, then they're like, let's buy these bags, let's do this, and let's do this, let's set a price at this point. Yeah, that's majorly guessing. And just to place an emphasis, good governance means it's through data-driven decisions by either tracking inflation, supply chains, cost of production, and using this, they're able to make good policies. Because without these policies, like, driving a car with your eyes closed, because, you're going to crash it eventually. And in this case, the crash is through creating shortages or surpluses, whereby, we have maybe farmers who have maybe bags of maize or potatoes or whatever, and they have to feed them to cows, or they have to let them rot because the government decided you can't sell a bag of maize more than this price. So if you are the finance minister in your country, what data would you check before fixing a price? Would you check inflation? Would you check people's emotions? Would you check being re-elected into office? Would you check maybe the products that your friends are producing so that you set a price at a certain point so that your friends make profits? How would you do it? Yeah, so all in all, governments must assess inflation and all those other things before setting prices. Otherwise, they risk economic sabotage. And transparent data keeps politics honest and markets sane. Yes, with transparent data and better policies, an equilibrium is achieved in this case. And even as officials struggles, ordinary people tend to innovate. And does innovation really help as much as maybe the policies are bad? Yes, we tend to see that innovation can't heal the deeper wounds price controls inflict on economies. Yes, so we've looked at that. Now we're going to look at the macroeconomic impacts of price controls. And um, time and time again, price controls tend to create a ripple effect. And if Jonathan was looking at Africa's or Corompo's skyline, and he sees maybe a tall GDP tower that begins to crack, each fracture labeled unemployment, inflation, corruption, maybe there are protests, name it, all the bad things that come from, the ripple effects on price controls that have been created. So price controls reduce profit signals, they discourage investment and distort GDP in the long run. And this starts as what starts as fairness becomes fragility in the long run. So yeah, it has maybe it definitely has long term damages that it started as good intentions. And yes, they may seem helpful in the short term, but long term they erode economic resilience. So another question that you can think about as you go along: can you think of a short term fix that cause long term damage, maybe in energy, in agriculture, in health, in whichever thing that the government tried to do by using good intention that backfired on them in the long run? And also, just to end of this slide, economies grow in confidence, and when rules betray logic, investors tend to retreat. So, what would you and Jonathan do differently? Yeah, just think about it. If you and Jonathan were uh, looking at Africa's or Corompo skyline, and you see that tall GDP tower beginning to crack, with each fracture having some unemployment, inflation, protectionist measures, and all manner of things. Uh, just something to think about. Yeah, so what will Jonathan do? Jonathan's journey teaches us to question government interventions. Yeah, because most of the interventions, yeah, they're meant for good, of course. Most of them are not data driven because it's purely emotions. And should the government really control prices? Yeah, that's something to think about. In economics, we say the government should intervene in some markets, but it should entirely not intervene in a market that is properly functioning. And when should government intervene in markets? Yes, if it's in goods that have positive externalities, of course the government should intervene, and maybe whereby consumers are exploited, and there's a way the government is supposed to intervene instead of us trying to set ceilings and price floors by allowing a free and natural equilibrium. And should they empower markets and produce consumers through competition? Absolutely, the government should do that. So, looking at the path forward, if Jonathan were to return to Corompo, or after his long journey that we've taken him through Africa, seeing different countries with different forms of price controls. The markets are calmer now, and as he sits with traders and farmers and policymakers to ask, what have we learned from maybe the council trying to tell farmers to not sell their produce cheaply, and those who have been selling their produce cheaply have been jailed. So out of their discussion comes a roadmap and a path forward after all these lessons that balances compassion with common sense. And the common sense is just application of economics and not emotions or trying to uh, get some personal gain. So we have the policy path forward is targeted transfers, and these targeted transfers should be through cash or voucher transfers to protect vulnerable populations and help manage price impact sustainably. So, first, the targeted transfers should be applied. Why? Because when governments use cash or voucher programs to protect the poor, it reaches those who truly need it without distorting the market for everyone else. Because by applying a blanket price cap, that is uh, the price ceiling, it affects the intended and the unintended. And we see in the long run it distorts or rather affects GDP growth rates. Second, we have the supply side investments, and Africa, or rather Corompo in this case, learned that if you grow more, you control prices naturally. So if you produce maybe more oil, if you produce more bread, if you produce more maize, whatever product, or even ideas, you control prices naturally. And through research, logistics, and better farm inputs, you expand supply and bring about stability in the long run. So, yes, so looking at the supply side investment, where the government should focus on, okay, not by giving subsidies maybe to uh, people who might not need it, but by boosting production, either through knowledge, research, it shifts the supply curve forward instead. And lastly, we have regional integration. And when if Africa trades freely with its neighbors under the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, shortages in one area can be met by surplus in another, and abundance shared is abundance sustained in the long run. So if maybe your neighbor has a competitive advantage of producing maybe onions, and you can produce more fish, you can trade and coordinate across, and this can be sustainable for both of you in achieving an equilibrium in prices instead of trying to control prices. of course with good intention backed up, which tend to backfire in the long run. So if you are your countries, or say maybe you are in this in this country known as Corompo, new economic advisor, or maybe you are sitting somewhere in an influential position, which of these three would you prioritize first: transfers, investment, or integration, and why? Think about it. Would you uh, invest in research? Would you do targeted transfers, maybe because of the low income households, or maybe regional integration? Yeah, and yeah, of course, you have your reasons as to why. So, Jonathan, and even yourself in this session, you tend to realize it isn't about the quick fixes, trying to maybe place a ceiling or a price floor. It's about creating conditions for sustainability and abundance to thrive in the long run. And governments don't have to be food police. They can be market gardeners, nurturing growth instead of restricting it. They don't have to tell you to sell your bag of maize at 100 shillings or sell your palm oil at um, maybe $10 or whatever. They can just try to invest in research, knowledge, yeah, whatever their role is in the provision of public goods, instead of intervening in markets which are not having a dysfunction. And that brings us to the next challenge: how to apply these lessons ourselves. So, in this session, I believe you're from different countries. So, you can just pick your country or your favorite African country, analyze a price control policy that the government has implemented. It might not be on food, it might be on education, it might be even on services, whatever good or service that the government has placed a price cap or a price floor on it. And what was the goal? Did it go wrong? Did it go right? Yeah, let me know. Then, how would Africa Free Continental Trade Area or regional coordination help in this case? So, this is just a question that I'll post to the class. Maybe you can post your answer there. If you're advising your country's finance minister, what would you recommend? And also, the debate on equity versus efficiency and control versus freedom. If someone says equity and the other one says efficiency, they're both right, but both of them can clash, because they're both well intended, but is it the right approach? And also, can we design a policy that protects the poor without stifling the private sector or stifling the supply side? And also, the real challenge isn't choosing sides, it's balancing them. So you can't choose to maybe place a cap or a floor on the supply side to help the demand side. It's you're supposed to balance both by achieving an equilibrium, and equity ensures justice, efficiency ensures survival. So yeah, they're both right, but yeah, they clash. So you either get justice or you get survival. So that's Jonathan's lessons from Corompo. And when governments try to control prices, they end up controlling scarcity instead, like you've seen. So, with wisdom and cooperation, Africa, through the Africa Free Trade and Free Trade Area, can choose abundance instead of trying to stifle the supply or the demand side. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you. Is the class prefect still here?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for your presentation. Maybe before I bring you down, there are a few questions that have been asked, and I was hoping you'd be able to respond to them. But of course, thank you so much for the wonderful session that you've had today. And of course, for those of us who are on the call, remember there is a sheet on, there is a Google link on or in the comment section for you to, just your attendance for today. And like I said, the secret code is, of course, food police. And so please be sure to sign in. Please be sure to sign in. And let us avoid sharing. The code so that those who are or those who didn't attend cannot get to be part of it. I'm trying to load the questions from my end so that I can get them. Please continue dropping your questions on the chat box so that we can get to ask all of them and questions answered. Let's continue dropping them in the chat box so that we can answer. And so the first question, I think I should be able to now. Okay, so the first question should be from Samudama, and he asks, how can the government ensure that the market forces of demand and supply interact freely without them interfering the market forces in today's nation, as it is very hard for them to refrain themselves? Not sure if you got the question, but maybe I can repeat. He asks, how can the government ensure that the market forces of demand and supply interact freely without them interfering with the market forces in today's nation, as it is very hard for them to refrain themselves? Maureen, did you get the question?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for your question. That's a good question. So how can the government ensure market forces to interact freely? So yeah, like I mentioned before, the government is not supposed to intervene in a market that can function on its own, because it creates the shortages or the surplus that we've talked about. So the government can only intervene in maybe if the conduct of maybe the suppliers, by trying to impose regulation in case conduct is the conduct of maybe the suppliers is not good. Looking at maybe competition, trying to look at how these suppliers operate. That's the only way the government is supposed to intervene. For instance, in Kenya, we have um the Bureau of Standards that looks at the quality of different goods, making sure the consumers are not harmed in the process, but it should not intervene in trying to make sure prices of certain products are sold um, at a certain price. Like if the government tries to intervene in the fuel market, like in Kenya, we have the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, which sets our prices, and it we've seen time and time again they try to ensure the through the price margins that they set, it's only the supply side that tends to get surplus compared to the demand side. So the only thing that the government is supposed to ensure the market forces interact freely, um, regulates the conduct of different suppliers and farms, as well as ensure um, proper competition between different farms by allowing entry and exit of different farms in this market, allowing as much products as possible so that consumers with different income levels are catered for, and also suppliers selling their products can sell their products from the highest to the lowest prices. And yeah, for instance, if maybe maize, we can have maize varying from a bag of $10 all the way to $1, and different consumers can be able to afford that, as well as different suppliers can be able to supply all those products. They can only intervene on the quality and also allow um, proper competition among different suppliers in the market. Yeah, thanks.
Much for that question. The other question is from Festus Kiprotich, and he asks, should the government have power to control food and sales?
Thank you, Festus, for your question. You're asking whether the government should have power to control food production and sales. And I'll just draw your attention to this graph on price controls. And in this case, yeah, the government is trying to control. Yeah, we've talked about the government trying to control not only food, but different goods and services that the government tries to control the prices. We've seen even the government trying to control something like the foreign exchange, and it tends to backfire at some point whereby depreciation or appreciation of a currency tends to happen. So, okay, let's keep it to food production and also sales. So, if the government tries to impose price ceiling on this, which is maybe below the equilibrium. The equilibrium, if the demand and supply forces worked together in this case, they'll achieve an equilibrium of, say, $100. But the government tries to impose a price ceiling of, say, you can't sell a product, or you can't produce maybe more than this amount of bags in your farm, or maybe you can't sell a bag at maybe $90, more than $90. What does the farmer do instead? The farmer will not be able to produce, will stop producing maize in this case, or rather maybe they'll go produce something else. So we'll have a shortage of maize in this case. So is this good? No, because if a shortage occurs, and yeah, that will be, demand will be more than supply, that means the prices will be high, and who's hurting in this case? It's the consumer. So I don't think the government should have the power to control sales or even production of maize. The government should stick to its role of producing public goods provision and also producing goods with positive externalities. Thanks. Okay, I'm seeing some questions that have popped up. Can I just answer them, or should I just go ahead? Okay. Yeah, I've seen a question on the disadvantages of government control in the price control in the market. Yes, in this case we were talking about governments, the disadvantage of, yeah, okay, the topic was majorly food police, and the government was trying to control food prices, and we've seen it backfire both in Corompo and also in Africa, whereby as much as it was short term, it created scarcity, and also it increased the prices of these commodities. So you've asked if in this case oil in Kenya, where prices keep increasing due to the price ceiling set by the government, will that lead to establishment of black markets? I like to say yes, because we've seen people, if the government sets a price, if the government sets a price ceiling on, if the government sets a price ceiling on fuel, it will lead to establishment of, yeah, of course, different suppliers in the energy and petroleum market will try to find a way to survive. And in this case, black markets are created. And we've seen people going as far as, if you're Kenyan, you've had people going to Uganda, Tanzania, people trying to find a way of importing fuel to sell to people. So, yeah, of course, people will try to create alternative markets in this case. So, Meralda Okumu, you're asking what will determine equilibrium price sets when there is a surplus in TZ and a deficit in Kenya. Okay, apologies for using the term deficit. Not necessarily a deficit, but say Kenya has like low production of maybe maize, and Tanzania has a surplus. So if Tanzania has a surplus and Kenya has low production, instead of trying to control the prices of the low production, the low harvest in Kenya, by trying to say it will be sold at maybe 100 shilling or so, how about maybe we negotiate with Tanzania, which has a surplus, and when they have a surplus, I believe the prices tend to be low on the other end. Have people import and sell at a reasonable price in Kenya instead of trying to control the prices of what already exists in Kenya. I believe that answers your question. And there's Pesh Baraza, who is asking regional trade. Oh, I think you are replying to Miralda. That is Joseph Onyonyi who's saying, oh, okay, I think it's a chat that's going on. And now Naomi is asking, can the Africa Free Continental Trade Area be the solution to market inefficiencies? If there's coordination, we've discussed about coordination and also trying to coordination in terms of data and also coordination and cooperation in terms of cross-border trade. I believe it will provide a solution to market inefficiencies instead of having people working in silos, each country working in silos. You can have, if you have a comparative advantage of maize production in Tanzania or Uganda, and Kenya has maize shortage production due to its water levels, or rather the arable land, it will um, sustain Kenya's low production, while Kenya maybe has um, skilled workforce who can help in research, maybe in Uganda, Tanzania, or whichever country. So it's just about cooperation and coordination and making sure there's a free cross-border trade. Yes, thanks. Nathan Kipchumba is asking, how can the government subsidies help to lower the cost of food production in Kenya, yet there might be climate effects in the production? Okay, I'm not quite getting your question. How can the government subsidies help to lower the cost of food production in Kenya, yet there might be climate effects? Okay, for climate effects, I'll say those are just weather shocks which are bound to happen. And subsidies in this case, we mentioned subsidies tend to create a burden on government's fiscal space. So yes, it will be lowering the cost of food production, yes, for the farmers by maybe having low input in production capacity. But in the long run, the government will be running low on its budget because it tends to spend more to sustain the subsidies. And if there's a climate shock, that means food prices will be high in the end, as much as a subsidy has been applied. Then Stephen Kaburu is asking, what's your opinion on governments stroke donor handouts like that advanced to targeted low-income households? I sometimes fail to see the impact of government or donor-funded handouts to low-income households. Okay, if you look at the data on poverty levels in Kenya, at least 40% of the population are suffering from food poverty. And when you talk about food poverty, they can't afford a certain calorific content, in a day, meaning they can't afford maybe 100 shillings in a day. So these are the people who government and donor-funded handouts should sustain in case of droughts, in case of anything in the supply shock. For instance, during COVID, people are not able to go to work, even those people who are getting low income. This is where the government should the targeted transfers should happen. Yes, that's what I meant by government or donor handouts to target low-income households. They help in a way by sustaining them during supply shocks, but of course it can't be long-term. So that's in case there's a supply shock whereby the government is needed to implement price control, and the price control tends to affect even the unintended people. How about maybe they just implement the targeted transfers, because it really helps. If you if you tend to interact with different people from different backgrounds, you'll tend to understand that the government and donor handouts tend to help low-income household people. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Maureen, for the wonderful presentation and for being able to respond to the questions that everyone had. Of course, for those of us who are on the call who didn't get the chance to mark themselves present, the link or the Google link is still, or the form is still, the link is still in the comment section. You can go ahead and fill it up. The secret code, like I said, is Food Police. And so as we finish up, I'd love us to, maybe just thank Miss Maureen for today. And as usual, the link for that is in the comment section. That's Menti link. Just click on it, and then the code will be 1129257. And let us be able to just do this pretty much quick and finish up so that we can proceed with the day. Let us finish up, guys. Let us finish up. Okay, I can see the comments streaming in. Let me just put my screen up so that we can finish up almost immediately. Okay, the first question was ideally maybe just to see which word stood out for everyone. And as you can see on the screen, it's all lit up. And it only shows that quite a number of us were able to pick up, the best words. And of course, moving to the next, the second slide, there are 2 slides on it. So if we can be able to just add that, the most important one is being able to ensure that Ms. Maureen leaves this call knowing how exactly you feel about his presentation, which is very much important. So if you can move to the next slide and just fill it up so that we can finish this up today. Okay, so thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for being with us today and for being able to give us your time. I believe we have all learned something new today, and it's been a wonderful experience for all of us that we are continuing to learn from these sessions every day. And we still have a lot lined up for you. And hopefully, as we continue to go through this, you will be, getting something out of it. So thank you for today, and see you all in the next session. Bye-bye.